Hello students, and welcome to part 4 of the air pollution lecture series. Today we're going to be talking about effects, regulation, and indoor air pollution. This video might look a little bit different than the other videos because after 4 tries, Zoom is not sending my lecture to the cloud. So we're going to try to record this on the computer and upload it from there. So effects, we'll start with those. The effects on aquatic life are particularly bad for air pollution because the aquatic ecosystems are the ultimate repository for various air pollutants. In particular, when you have acid rain damage, the nutrients, the metals that get leached out of the soil, including aluminum, are going to end up in your local water body. Water will also be where often soot and other things fall, and so your damage to your aquatic ecosystems can be pretty extreme. Air pollution is also really damaging for property. So we talked about the effects of acid rain on metals, calcium carbonate structures, like anything that made out of limestone, which are things like concrete, or things made out of marble, which is a lot of our statues, sculptures, buildings, etc., are going to cause a lot of damage. But things I haven't mentioned before are that acid rain and acid pollution can break down the paint on cars, it can deteriorate roofing, it can etch glass. And so there's just a lot of negative effects of acid rain and air pollution in general on property. So and then finally, we need to talk about what it does to people. We've talked about carbon monoxide already, and that you can die from carbon monoxide poisoning because it literally inhibits the ability of your blood to be able to carry oxygen. But for most of these other things, think lung diseases. So things like bronchitis, asthma, emphysema, lung cancer, these are going to be most of the effects that air pollution has on people. There's other things we mentioned, lead with, causing neurological damage, and ozone can also cause a lot of just, damage to your lungs. But really for most of these, think lung damage in various ways that can be either made worse or actually be caused by air pollution. You can look up your air pollution, air quality index, the AQI, for any area in the country by going to airnow.gov. And when you get up into the oranges and reds, you need to be careful about how much time you spend outside. If you have asthma or some other lung condition, you would not want to go outside if you're anywhere above the orange category. As you go up to the reds and the dark reds, like we did when we had wildfires a few years ago, pretty much everyone should limit their time outdoors. So this is what it looks like. You can go there and pull it up for any part of the country and see how your air quality is. All right, so what do we have for laws for air pollution? The Clean Air Act is our law for air pollution, for outdoor air pollution. We first passed it in 1970, and it's undergone some changes and upgrades since that time. And the main thing that the Clean Air Act did was it set the national ambient air quality standards. This allowed them to regulate and watch 7 outdoor air pollutants to look at how they're changing over time and to help reduce those levels. So the 7 outdoor air pollutants are particulate matter, sulfur, carbon, nitrogen oxides, ozone, VOx, and lead. Note that the Clean Air Act does not deal with indoor air pollution. So it was set up and it was there to prevent any more deterioration of our atmosphere through these pollutants. In more recent years, carbon dioxide has been added to the list. However, that one has been challenged in court, and I think at this point, carbon dioxide is still not being regulated as an air pollutant by the EPA. And but for these other 7, they may regulate these toxic air pollutants. All right, so how effective is it? It's hard to quantify because a lot of this comes out in health benefits. But we have, the only one that hasn't come down significantly and has gone up is nitrogen dioxide. And that's partly because of our increased use of automobiles. But when you look at these estimates, it's always hard to estimate how much we're saving in lower healthcare costs for the people who are negatively impacted by air pollution. So, but still, we're also looking at, we still have a lot of people that suffer bad air quality especially from time to time, and in certain areas like Los Angeles, where they get a lot of air pollution still. All right, so and there's an update that was recently in the New York Times, but really it's changing actually every year. I like to put up these sorts of pictures of, basically this is what the world looked like when I was growing up. I grew up near Chicago, and the game whenever we drove into Chicago, which was about an hour away, was to see who could pick out the skyscrapers in the orange smoggy sky as we approached the city. And there were days where you had to get really close to Chicago before you could even see the buildings. And so this image of Manhattan in 1973 is a lot of what my memories of Chicago were like in the 1970s when I was a small child. Here's a picture of Chicago in 1974, and that's not even a bad day because it used to be called the John Hancock Building. You can see the antennas on it. And that used to be one of the things I would look for, is like, can you see the antennas on the John Hancock Building? Chicago today is beautiful. And in fact, still when I go home, I'm impressed by how beautiful the city is now, because it's not what my memory of it is, you know, from when I was growing up. All right, so what are the technologies? And I'm not going to go into these in any detail because I've never really studied, but there's ways especially to remove the soot from going into the air. And so a lot of that particulate matter can be taken out through the use of various types of scrubbers. And again, you can look at Miller for more detailed information about how these work, but there are ways to remove a lot of air pollution before it reaches the sky. It's just, it can be expensive. And again, there's some more things. So what can you do? You can recirculate exhaust gas to reduce your NOx, and but this can also increase hydrocarbon emissions. In the 1970s, they made it required to put catalytic converters in cars, and that would reduce the carbon monoxide that comes out, but it can also have, it can again increase other things like carbon dioxide. So the other thing to note is that as your car ages, its ability to remove pollutants or to keep emissions low goes down. So most states require emissions checks every few years to make sure that your car is not putting out too much pollution. And, you know, so the idea is, again, a combination of reducing use, you know, cutting fossil fuel use, improving efficiency, preventing the pollution rather than trying to do something once it's up there is the way to go. And we're going to talk a little bit about indoor air pollution. And this is a kind of a scary picture in that, oh my gosh, every room in your house is going to be putting out nasty, nasty things. And, you know, realize anytime you smell something like that, new carpet smell, new furniture smell, new shower curtain smell, that you are inhaling potentially air pollutants. You're inhaling, if you can smell it, you're inhaling something. And again, you can get kind of paranoid looking at a picture like this. But realize, you know, bathrooms and kitchens where you keep a lot of your cleaners are going to be emitting things. If you have a wood burning stove and you use it, that can be putting air pollution into your house. But a lot of your indoor air pollution can be fixed with proper ventilation, and the easiest way is just to open your windows from time to time. This is a slightly cleaner looking picture that again kind of goes through room by room where you might find sources of indoor air pollution. So what are the 4 most hazardous indoor air pollutants? Smoke, and this can come from wood stoves, or if somebody in your house smokes cigarettes. Formaldehyde, I think we learned about this in the toxicology unit, but things that, building materials, laminate flooring has been a huge source of formaldehyde. And this can cause headaches, sore throat, eye irritation. Asbestos, which I might have in the ceiling right above my head right now because I have a popcorn ceiling and my house was built prior to 1984. It was used as a fireproofing agent before they realized that it caused cancer, and it's still around, and again could be in my ceiling because I haven't tested it to see if that is asbestos up there. And then radon-222, this is actually a naturally occurring radioactive gas that can seep up into your basements. It's caused by the decay of uranium. It's one of the decay products of that. So starting with smoke, if you use wood-fired stoves, et cetera, to do your indoor cooking, et cetera, you're gonna have more indoor air pollution from smoke. And that tends to happen more in your developing nations. Moving on to radon, again, it's caused by the decay of uranium down in the earth, and the earth, you know, has a lot of these radioactive elements. Because radon's a gas, it can migrate upwards, and you can't see it, you can't smell it, so it's hard to know if you might have a radon issue in your house. So one of the things you can do is test it. It tends to only accumulate in basements. And so you can send away for a sample. My dad did this because he had his home office in the basement when I was growing up. And when this first came out that radon was a thing, he sent away for a test kit, found out our basement was fine. If you find that your basement is not fine, you can actually just get proper ventilation in your basement to take care of the problem. But radon, because it is radioactive, can cause cancer. All right, so again, ventilation can help prevent any issues. What are the effects then? So effects of air pollution on humans, we talked about a few of these already. First off, how does the body try to protect itself from particulate matter. You have nose hairs. And if you've ever been to a really polluted place, I've had it happen to me twice, once in New York City and once in London, where at the end of the day, if I blew my nose, I would blow black out. And that's, if you're in a really polluted city, the nose hairs will actually catch the larger particulate matter. You also have mucus that traps particulate matter in your throat, as well as like little hairs in the trachea that push that mucus upwards. And so when you cough at, if you are in a polluted place and you start coughing, that's your body trying to get that stuff out of you. What it doesn't stop though is the very fine stuff, the PM10 and even more the PM2.5, which are the particles that are super small, will get past all your body's defenses. So again, think lung issues for the most part. So lung cancer, asthma can be both made worse by air pollution and can also be caused by air pollution. Chronic bronchitis, many of you might have had acute bronchitis. You get sick and you have bronchitis for a few weeks. Chronic bronchitis means you pretty much have it all the time. And then emphysema, often long-term smokers will get emphysema, but I think people who live in super polluted areas, it's also maybe possible to get it from air pollution. All right, so finally, what has changed in the last few months with the coronavirus pandemic? And it's kind of, I think, interesting to look at, because when you wonder what, are these things really causing air pollution? When you look at China in January compared to China in February after they shut down because of the coronavirus, you'll see that the nitrogen dioxide density went way, way down. There have been lots of articles written. This is New Delhi in 2019, and this is New Delhi in 2020. So it's amazing how clear the air is. And you can call it cherry picking because no place is going to be polluted all the time. Still, many of these pollutions have, many of these cities have many days of the year where the air pollution is very thick. A few more examples. This is Wuhan, China in 1998, and this is 2020. And I think they chose this picture because they were able to line it up the same with a current picture. This is London, 2017, 2020. And then, when I said that you can be cherry picking some of the pictures, like Los Angeles is not going to be smoggy all the time. But what was really telling was this is from Punjab, India, and they had not been able to see the Himalayas in 30 years because of the air pollution in that city. So people who lived there were posting all kinds of pictures to social media saying, wow, we can actually see the Himalayas first time in 30 years. So I think one of the important things, we can't shut down our economy to save on air pollution, but what it does show is when you stop using the cars that emit all of the pollution, stop the industries that are creating all the pollution, you see a dramatic and very rapid change in air quality. So no, we can't shut down our economy to stop air pollution. So what can we do? We can put more emphasis on preventing in the first place. So improve energy efficiency, reduce fossil fuels, and increase renewable energy. Slow population growth, so fewer demands on resources. Integrate, air pollution prevention with other policies instead of treating it separately. Regulate air quality for entire regions. Tax production. So these are a bunch of Miller solutions, and maybe a few of my own. But transfer appropriate technologies to developing countries that still really suffer from a lot of air pollution, and all of these things I think can help. So that concludes our air pollution lecture series. Hopefully these will get uploaded onto YouTube very soon.